Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. With me, Cassidy DeVere, the Executive Officer from CHBACO.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, a couple of letters, eh? One letter.
Yeah.
Caused a little bit of a storm, I take it?
It did. We've had actually an amazing positive feedback from the community, actually. People have been calling our office and sending emails, and a lot of feedback saying, somebody had to say this, so thank you. And
well, whenever there's a problem, you got to take a flashlight out and shine a light, and you captured some attention.
Yeah. It's I don't think quite understood the challenges our industry is facing right now, and especially in our city, the number of businesses that have already closed. We lost a very long-standing cabinet company recently who closed and went back to Calgary because their Calgary office was subsidizing their Kelowna office for a long period of time, and it just wasn't sustainable for them anymore.
And Homebuilding is kind of like, I've been to some of the award shows. It's kind of like the jewel here in the Okanagan too. It's been kind of the jewel for sure.
Yeah, we're a top 4 employer, and so there's been a number of years, particularly through COVID, where we outperform tourism and higher wages and for a lot of people that work in the industry compared to tourism, and so we're often ignored and neglected. And
the federal government ran on both parties were saying they're going to build homes faster because housing is a crisis here in Canada. It's been a crisis for a while with the immigration policies and that. I mean, the need for housing has never been greater, and they promised to build, I think, twice as many homes. They said they're going to get to 500,000 homes a year from 270,000 homes, and they're actually going to be under this year. And then you're the home builders, though, and it seems like the bureaucracy just kind of chokes you, and I think that's what your letter is highlighting, right? Like the bureaucracy, the DCCs, and all the other costs that are kind of involved that are kind of stymieing your ability to build affordable homes for people.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that the response that we received had a couple of really interesting comments, and one of them was that we don't control the market, where all 3 levels of governments have a massive impact on the market, and secondly, it's said in the response to us that this is a Canada-wide problem that housing is down, and that's actually not accurate. Housing starts are way down in BC and Ontario, but they're actually up in most other provinces, particularly Alberta, Saskatchewan. Alberta slowed down a little bit more, near the end of 2025. Saskatchewan's up. The Maritimes are way up because those provinces are cheaper to build in and they're cheaper to live in. And what we've seen is, people move away from BC, in particularly because it's very expensive. And so that idea that we've had in the past of Kelowna as this little bubble isn't accurate. And I think we're seeing that in our unemployment rates and our vacancy rates, which are hitting record levels.
You point out that the DCCs here are almost as high as 50,000 per unit here in Kelowna.
Yeah, it depends.
And 30% of the cost is just taxes and fees and.
Yeah, the average new home, and this is like kind of, even across Canada, 30% of that is government fees, taxes, and levies, at all different levels. The NDP just brought in PST on consultants, so there's another fee that's
more, right?
Embedded
Architects,
in it. Federally, they removed, they came out with a GST rebate for first-time home buyers, and I know I talked about that a long time ago. They campaigned on it. It's still not through. It's still stuck in the Senate.
And that's actually slowed down some home building.
Absolutely, because there's a hesitation to believe that a government rebate's going to be there eventually. Right. If a snap election was called, that rebate could be gone. So definitely hesitation in that sense. But what's really important to understand, particularly in the Kelowna area, is our OCP was brought in with no more new subdivisions, limited urban sprawl, permanent growth boundaries. But if you ask UBCO, YLW, Kelowna Flightcraft, massive employers, they will all tell you there's no housing in the area near where their employment is. And so, it was kind of like, well, when we were warned, can't keep building single family homes, things are going to change. It's like, okay, so we'll pivot. We try to, build carriage homes. Well, right after a whole area of Kelowna was zoned for carriage homes, great, opened up a lot of things. Right away, it was like, oh, and by the way, DCCs are going up to
That was astronomical, wasn't it? That
$25,000. So
from like 2750 or something.
Yeah,
like that?
it was
like
a
a
massive
10x
change.
10x change.
It was a
right?
massive change. And so, okay, so now
Wild.
carriage homes aren't viable. It's like, okay, well, let's go into something else. Okay, well, infill. Okay, that's what we want. We want infill housing. And Bill 44, which was provincially mandated, so it wasn't something that the city innovated or brought on themselves. It was a provincial mandate. There's been very little uptake on that, and it's because infill housing is really, really expensive to build.
But don't people still want that single family home, especially when they start raising a family? It's tough to raise a family in 300 square feet.
Well, yeah, and when you look at even the pre-designed house plans, so the first slew of pre-designed plans that came out for infill, there was zero uptake on any of them. Not a single one got built. And, when you look at a lot of them, some of them have less storage than a condo has. And so when you think of families that live here, they've got hockey equipment, they've got softball bags, they've got bikes and all those types of things. That's why people move to our community, is for a lot of recreation and lifestyle. And anyone that works in the trades, where is your work van supposed to go? Where are your tools supposed to go? And so we're really not building housing to, hold people that are employed here.
What about step code? You mentioned that as a number 4, and you said it's just so expensive, this net zero construction, that nobody wants to pay for.
Yeah, so we have a number of net zero builders in the community, many who have gotten their certification to do it, and a number of them say, I haven't had a single person in multiple years ask me to build a net zero home. Net zero is slightly different than step code, and right now step code's at step 3, provincially mandated. Different municipalities across BC are at different levels, whether it's step 4, still at step 3. But what we're seeing is that building is so expensive that people aren't wanting that. And so the BC government actually had an independent review of Clean BC, and that independent review came out and said, delete step 5. That's not necessary. The diminishing returns, the cost to get to step 5 and the returns doesn't make any sense. Now, this is an independent review. And the other one said step 4 mandates should be pushed out because the current timeline is not it's not achievable. And so that would be our request. As far as step code goes, one of the things I find really interesting is this push for modular. So we want more modular construction. We want to streamline productivity, make things faster, but you have a bunch of municipalities at different levels of the step code. So what it means is a modular company can't actually build the same home in every community. And so it defeats the purpose of that.
So what do you want to see? I think you outlined it in your letter, what you want to see, but I know that Canadians right now, I think we've done so many stories on it that, like 50% of Canadians are $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. So price is a big factor, right? It is one of the biggest factors right now, but they also need housing. Mm-hmm. And if we can't deliver them, we keep hearing build affordable housing, but this seems to fight against it. All these things they're asking for, the bureaucracy, seem to fight against affordable housing. It seems like we're in a kind of build affordable housing, here's some more costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a number of times you hear, politicians at all 3 levels like, I just wish there was something we can do. Well, there is. There's lots they can do. There's lots of options. And so, yeah, we just want them to also recognize and understand the pain that our industry is feeling, because I don't think it's being understood.
Yeah, I think you highlighted in your letter that there's some people that haven't pulled a permit for a couple of years, mm-hmm. and that's scary, right? Because that means we're laying off, cabinet makers, we're laying off flooring people, we're laying off in a whole bunch of different areas, right?
Yeah,
and those are usually good paying jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen massive layoffs within our membership, and what we've also seen is business owners that, used to be more CEO level are, again, because they haven't been pulling permits, are out painting, installing floors. Like, they've replaced that
They're back in the work
workforce.
themselves.
Yeah. And so, businesses that maybe had 18 employees before are down to 2. And that's something we've seen broadly across a lot of businesses within our community. And that's, that's sad.
And then you hoped you got a positive reaction, but the city of Kelowna pushed back hard on what you said and said that they've basically been doing a good job. What do you think of that? Their response to your letter?
Yeah, well, again, I think a number of things in there are very interesting, and I think I kind of touched on a number of them of not saying you don't have an impact, you don't control the market. You saw that when Airbnb rentals were pulled. Instant impact. When the provincial government brought in the spec tax, instant impact. So there are a lot of things that have instant impacts from different levels of government. One that I find very interesting is using 10-year data for homeownership. Really, the pandemic numbers should be pulled from that, because the pandemic numbers are what's carrying that, is what's saying we're on target, which those years are an absolute anomaly. And if you take those out of the equation, we are massively behind. And so what I find interesting like that, it'd be like saying, how's business at your restaurant? It's saying, oh, it's really good because we were busy 3 years ago. That doesn't really make sense. And so when you look at the construction on those outlying years, so leading up to the pandemic numbers and since the pandemic, those numbers are not good.
Yeah, the part that I have a lot of trouble with, and because we do a lot of stories, and the stories is housing, like housing in crisis. We need to build more homes. We need to build affordable homes. And yet the 3 levels of government that affect the housing prices, like 30%, like basically 30% of the housing price, and people should get this, 30% of the price of that home is affected by government, even though they say don't affect it. 30% of that, so they have control over 30% of that price. And that is 30% of the price that most people don't see in the walls, right? They don't see that value in the walls. They may see it in a park or something like that, but they don't see it in their walls, right? And what they want is a roof over their head. So how do we make that connection? How do we connect that? Because it seems to be like a huge disconnect.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at our provincial budget, which is not good, our provincial government and, maybe others are realizing that, we relied on PTT way too heavily, and PTT should never have gone into general revenue. PTT should be funding infrastructure. I think it's interesting. It's, the same argument that, the ICBC profits were put into general revenue, and they didn't, NDP didn't like that. So they, didn't allow that. I think the PTT highlights that our provincial economy was funded on housing, and they took that away and didn't replace it with anything.
Yeah, and this latest one, it's like the tax cupboard is bare. This latest budget that came out, the tax cupboard is bare, and they're trying to figure out how to get more tax out of the taxpayer, and with minimal kind of like reaction from the general public. So they went after businesses again. They went after with PST, kind of like a roundabout way to kind of get more tax. And it's quite a bit of tax, actually. 7% all of a sudden they're going to take from security services, which you have to put security when you're building a home, you're putting security on, architects, and a whole bunch of other services all of a sudden are getting nailed with PST.
Architectural fees is a massive one.
Yeah. So that all adds. Now all of a sudden, you're at 30%. Now, obviously, that's going to add to that as well, right? And then it just seems like we're fighting against ourselves when they stand at the podium and tell you we want affordable homes. Yet on the other side of it, we don't seem to want to walk the talk, right?
Yeah, and a number of things like Kelowna's always been amazing for permitting timelines, and that's not something, that's been done in the last couple of years. That's something that's been, Kelowna's been a leader in that for, probably 10, 15 years. And having, staff members from the city actually travel across Canada, speak at, our association meetings across Canada about, here's how you can make it work. Here's how permitting can go. And so, that's great, but that work was done a long time ago. So when we look at what's been done recently, it's Yeah.
And I'm going to give you an example of where the government has actually tried to help, and they did it with taking the GST off of purpose-built rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And it stoked purpose-built rentals here in this area to the point where we have too many now.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see where they actually did something that worked. Why wouldn't they do the same thing, just remove GST off all homes?
All new
right?
homes, yeah.
All new homes, and just say, doesn't matter, all new homes get no GST, because it puts people to work, puts a ton of people to work, gets homes built, and that money goes into the economy, and it it has a multiplier effect too, right? Because the plumber now working, the electrician now working, everybody working, and that contributes to the economy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's if there's lost revenue, you're not collecting income tax, and so
we're in stagnation right now.
Yeah, and it seems interesting where a lot of policies, particularly provincial, were put in to cool the housing market. When like think of like a light
Buckets
switch
of cold water.
when it should have been a dial. Like it should be, it shouldn't be the market's hot, so we're going to slam it and then it dies, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we got to stimulate it again.
Wow.
Instead, it should be a dial. Instead, it should be put in a policy, wait and see how it impacts things, and more slow, measured approaches would be better. And again, you've seen that with Airbnb.
Yeah, the Airbnb one is a prime example of a bucket of cold water, because it was hot for sure, because we were selling developments out in the day. They threw the bucket of cold water on there, and the ones that were kind of in progress still can't sell those units. And there's a lot of people I've talked to that are, some of them facing bankruptcy because they can't float the property, because it never ever cash flowed without Airbnb. You can't, if a property is $7,000 a month in carry costs, you can't rent it for $7,000. And a lot of people don't have $3,000 to supplement a home every month.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to a larger problem which we're seeing in BC, is that you buy a property understanding what it was zoned for, what you were allowed to do it, and having
zoned and sold as, and
you have a municipality or a provincial government that comes in and changes what you can do with the property you own. Creates so much uncertainty, and again, okay, you look at the Kelowna Springs golf course that was purchased because it was industrial land, and then all of a sudden that got pulled back. So I know that's been sorted out now, but again, you buy something for Airbnb, it was allowed to be Airbnb, and then it wasn't. And you look at the you look at the Cowichan lands as well, and so that is making people very hesitant to invest in BC.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people that said they will not. They will look elsewhere right now because a number of factors. Uncertainty is a huge thing for capital, right? I mean, and it's tough in your business because you're looking for people to lay out, for most people, the biggest amount of capital they'll ever lay out in their lives, right? Especially if they're going to build a custom home. To them, that's their dream home. And if they're just like, at this point, it's just too onerous.
Yeah, and I think what's missing a lot in the understanding is that, performas have to be viable for banks to finance on it. And so, I've talked to people now where even if they, delete the cost of land, the cost to build DCCs and offsite servicing, it's still too expensive, and the banks still would not lend on it even if the land was free.
Wow. And the land ain't free here.
It's not.
Yeah. And it's tough to get a lot here in Kelowna, isn't it? Like a single family home lot here.
Yeah, there's some. There's definitely some. Again, the cost to develop land is expensive. The DCCs at that point are really expensive. I mean, I've been harping on the Parks DCC since 2018, since it came in. Before it even came in, probably 2017. And so, there's a number of things that I think we need to look at differently. I know that, I'm not sure how often you go into City Hall, but if you go around City Hall, there's signs everywhere that say, Kelowna's striving to be the best mid-sized city in North America. And I think we are trying to achieve things that we can't afford.
Yeah, I think we need to get back to basics just in general, because Canada, we pull up a chart all the time if anybody ever watches our show. In 2014, Canada had the richest middle class in the world. We're not there anymore. No. We're far from it. And we're falling to the worst in many categories right now. People don't have the money. So that means we need to get back to basics. We need to get back to basics in so many things. We have to get rid of our aspirational dreams of all this thing. Because the problem is the people, will you tell me if this is the problem? The people in government are kind of detached from the everyday problems because, you know, they're whether you're provincial, federal, municipal, their salaries are typically not affected by downturns in the economy. They get paid no matter what. They get their bonus no matter what. Your industry is affected by cycles. And for them, they're kind of insulated from it. So they don't see the effects of not being able to make those truck payments, make those, you know, they can't make their mortgage payment. Or, you know, like I've seen families standing at the grocery store, they're looking at beef like it was, you know, a Christmas wish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. You know, probably more so, you know, at the local level, that's a reality. Provincially, I think they've slashed a lot of departments with this budget, and obviously they built up a lot. And I think if, you know, you had a change in government provincially, you know, they're more likely to slash a bunch than.
Well, we've grown the budget. I mean, one in 4 people works for the government at some level here in Canada right now.
Yeah. So they can. You know, it can change more so not with economics, but with change of government, I would say, that they're more at risk.
So with all that said, where do we go from here? Like, this letter is a start for you, right? Like raising awareness.
Yeah. And, you know, I was just in Ottawa, and same thing. We've asked the federal government to prioritize ownership housing and home ownership. Because again, it's been ignored. Great work has been done, as you said, on purpose-built rental. That is great. That shouldn't change. That should stay. That was really good. Lots of work on subsidized housing, which again is needed and has been great. And, you know, Build Canada Home's idea of building, you know, subsidized home on government land, great. You can do that, but you can't ignore market housing. It's a massive segment of the industry. And, you know, when you look at, you know, Abacus data, 88% of people under the age of 45 still want to own a home. Only 29% think it's a reality. And so I think what you hear is that, you know, I just wish there was something that we could do. Just because those people have given up doesn't mean that we should. And so even if people think I don't believe I'll ever own a home, doesn't mean we should say let's stop focusing on that then.
You know, when I was growing up, that never crossed my mind that I wouldn't own a home. It was a matter of when, right? Because I mean, it seems just like for a lot of young people, it just seems like an impossibility. Yeah.
And so basically all 3 levels of government, we're heading to Victoria next week. And so it'll be the same message there of, you know, we need action. We wrote a letter to the Prime Minister on pausing the National Building Code, complete stop, doing a complete overhaul like they've done in Australia, because currently affordability isn't weaved into the National Building Code, which is outrageous that it's not. It's outrageous that, you know, there's in-camera codes meetings that industry is invited to at a federal level. And so that's something we'll be asking for provincially as well.
And almost like it needs to be a complete rework and just like, how do we build an affordable home? And then maybe if we have some room, we can add some of those aspirational dreams to it.
Yeah. And, you know, have them available for those that can afford it. Yeah. You know, for people that want a fully electric home, have at it. Like if you want that, you know, go for it. And so what we've seen with housing, you know, if you were to relate it to cars, to say everyone should own a Mercedes because it's safe and it's this and it's that. And we think everyone should have a Mercedes. Not everyone can afford a Mercedes. Yeah. And so, you know, you see, you know, different options where in housing, it's getting to like, well, every house should be this and it should be world class and it should be environmentally friendly and accessible and this. And it's a long laundry list of all the things a house should be. And again, that's why it's really, really expensive.
Have you heard from the mayor directly yet, or?
Not myself personally. I know our president, Krista Payne, has been in touch with him, and I'm sure we'll have some more communication moving forward, and hopefully we can work together on finding some solutions. And I know outlined, you know, the city said there's some reports coming to council, so it'll be interesting and exciting to see what those reports look like and how council actions them.
Because it's a trifecta for you, though, right? It's federal, because they control the GST for sure, and then it's provincial. with a bunch of levies and taxes, and then obviously the
Mm-hmm.
municipal taxes and the DCCs are a big component of the home building.
Yeah, and there's no silver bullet, you know,
Yeah.
at any level. There is no like, oh, if we just did this, we would have, you know, housing solved. You know, there's so many different, you know, we haven't even touched on skilled trades. There's so many different aspects and components, and we need to do something in all of the areas if we want to see movement on it.
Yeah, and again, it is one of the biggest problems facing Canadians right now is affordable homes, and it seems to be like the government needs to start listening.
Yeah, and again, on the Abacus data survey, only 1 in 5 Canadians think government at all 3 levels is doing a good job of addressing housing affordability. So,
Well, I mean, we wouldn't be in this crisis, I don't think, if we were looking. Because I think most people in the industry, this is the biggest point that I want to make. I mean, I hear this, it doesn't matter which industry it is. Industry is not invited to these discussions. Forestry, not invited to these discussions. Who knows the most about what's going on in home building other than home builders?
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you know, there's interesting things. The city has all the permitting data, you know, so the city can, you know, it shouldn't be a shock when I say there's people that haven't built permits, you know, pulled a permit in a couple of years. They can probably, you know, again, they have all that information. They have more access to that than we do. We get that information from the city. And so, yeah, they could very, very clearly go through all of that and get a good pulse on, you know, where these companies are, addresses, where they're located. They have all that information. So,
yeah, and everything affects everything. Like you talk about the Airbnb thing, because people make investments and they go out and they make an investment in there because that's like for them secondary cash flow. You know, they bought one, but then that gets cut off. Now they have to pay for that. They can't build a home. Do you know what I mean? Like it just cuts their cash flow, and it just seems like people are getting hammered in so many different places. Food inflation, a whole bunch of different things. Now gasoline costs, and people are getting hammered almost everywhere they go, which makes home building something that they'll put off further and further and further down the line.
Yeah, and you know, if you're trying to float those mortgage payments, you're not going out for dinner as much. You're not, you know. You know, participating in entertainment within the city. And so, yeah, we are a very, you know, connected community. And so, yeah, when residential construction takes a nosedive, you know, particularly with the smaller companies, it's felt through a number of businesses.
Well, I do thank you for coming in, and I wish you luck in Victoria, because I know it's a problem that needs to get solved. For many people in Canada, and government needs to take it seriously. And you know, like podium talk is one thing, getting something done, and we know that they can make changes, right? We saw that with the removal of GST on purpose-built rentals, so we know things can get done.
Yeah, and the city of Burlington actually paused DCCs for a 2 full-year period, right down to zero.
So there you go. Well, that would be just a boom, right? That would be just a boom. The other one that was floated was if you sell a property, and as long as you put that capital back into, you know, another capital project. That would get some people moving properties as well, right?
Yeah, a number of people talk about not being able to downsize because, again, it just doesn't make sense. Why would they sell their property, especially for what they can get for it now, and buy something newer and smaller? And yeah, so.
Thank you for coming in, and thank you for watching Now Media.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.